this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Hard Lens Media. And this is going to be something very important to me because I want to be very consistent on this show and introduce to you, our audience, different people of different perspectives, points of view. Recently, we interviewed Dr. Cornel West, who's running for the Green Party. I've had Larry Sharp, who has run for governor for New York State, and he's with the Libertarian Party. And look, I think it's important that we cover every single political party, movement, organization, and people, because we must challenge our worldview, our perspectives, and not let corporate media or the two-party system dictate to us how we should feel or vote. And of course, right now, I've been seeing a massive onslaught and assault towards third parties. So joining me here today is a candidate who's running for the Libertarian Party nomination. I want to give a special shout out to Larry Sharp for helping facilitate this organization. I want to give it up for Chase Oliver, who also ran for U.S. Senate, I believe, in the 2022 midterm election cycle. Joining us for the first time, Chase Oliver. For my viewing audience, for my subscribers, can you please introduce yourself and your association with the Libertarian Party?
Yeah, so my name is Chase Oliver. I live here in Atlanta.
All right.
Can you hear me?
You have frozen up, but you might want to say that again.
So my name is Chase Oliver. I'm 38 years old. I'm from the city of Atlanta, and I was a U.S. Senate candidate for the Libertarian Party last year. And in 2020, I ran for Congress for the Libertarian Party. Okay, and I've been a Libertarian since 2010.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So first of all, obviously, you're running for the Libertarian Party nomination. For our viewers who might want to be interested, because we do have libertarians who do watch our show, I like to say I have a very diverse audience. The whole process about going for the nomination right now, what is exactly going to make up exactly? Like when will there be the nomination? When will that be? What month will that be? When will that take place? And overall, what is your thoughts so far on this onslaught towards third parties? Because right now, third parties are being vilified as, well, the spoiler candidates. You're going to disrupt the process and you're going to steal votes away from the establishment candidates, be they Democrat or Republican.
Yeah, we get that a lot. But first, we don't nominate the way the Republicans and Democrats do. They have primaries and a convention system. So each Libertarian Party in each state will come together and they will nominate delegates to come to our national convention. And that takes place in May of 2024 in Washington, and we'll nominate our candidates there. So unlike the Democrats and Republicans, their conventions are basically a pep rally. They already know who the nominee is going in. We don't know that. It is literally on the floor happening in multiple rounds of voting usually. So it's quite exciting. And so right now I'm traveling across the country to meet to libertarians all over the country, and I'll be at state conventions all over the country this coming fall to make my case for why I should be the pick. Okay. And, you're right. Third parties do get an awful lot by the two-party system. And it's because I liken it to pro wrestling. I say that the two-party system is just two people who are simulating combat in a ring to get you excited, to take your money, and to take your vote for granted. Because as long as it's just the two, they don't really have to service the needs of the voter. And so they fear any kind of competition. Whereas libertarians, we support free markets. We want as many parties and as much competition as possible. Because when you have that, you get the best product.
Now, real quick, I don't know if there's anything you do on your end, but unfortunately, you have been freezing in and out. So in case I might have to ask you to repeat what you said, I don't know if it's our friends at NSA or just bad internet connection, but you might have to repeat yourself here and there. But if there's anything you can do, maybe boost your signal up. I don't know. But that is a little bit of an issue. But
let me try to connect. So I should be direct connected, but I'm going to try to jump in Wi-Fi and right back out, see if that fixes things. So
all right, fantastic. So let's go ahead. So while you're getting that situated and set up, recently, I just wanted to say that I've been looking through your issues that you're fighting for and some of the things that are on your campaign website. Now, obviously, it's very important that people hear about the issues. But the thing is, what I want to know, your campaign, its overall goal. And I've asked this question to Dr. Cornel West, and I've asked this question to previous other independent candidates, be they Green, Libertarian, or some other smaller party. And that is, what happens the day after tomorrow? Because on the general election, ideally, or at least what I want to see, is third parties, be it Greens, Libertarians, get that coveted 5% or more of the general election vote, because then you could be recognized federally on the national level as a legitimate party. Now, we've seen various examples in different states where Libertarians are recognized or Greens are recognized, and then that disappears. But on the national level, there'll be a whole other different story. What will be your campaign's overall goal to get the Libertarian Party recognized on the national level? Is that your goal? Because obviously something astronomical has to happen for, I guess, a third party candidate to win the White House. Now, that's the overall finish line, but knowing how corporate media wants to smear third parties, knowing how there's many roadblocks preventing third parties from being on the debate stage, being on the ballot, that prevents that. So what will be your campaign's goal to get recognized? Is that your goal? And do you have an overall plan for what happens afterwards? Because people want to know, okay, third parties get recognized, what happens the day after?
Yeah, so great question. So let me just see if I've fixed some things up here. Hopefully that's helped. So yeah, there's a lot of metrics of victory, right? The top metric of victory would, of course, be winning the White House. But beyond that, you're right. There's lots of different milestones. 5% national one is a great milestone. I think it's totally doable in the 2024 political environment with Trump versus Biden 2.0 on the horizon. But other metrics of victory are, am I doing well enough in state to secure ballot access for the Libertarian Party in that particular state? Am I doing well enough in that state to secure major party, for instance, what they have in Iowa? So I want to make sure I'm securing enough votes in Iowa to secure their major party status. And so there's lots of different metrics of victory to look at beyond just winning the White House, as you said. And I want to make sure we're doing all that we can to get the libertarian message out loud and clear, because the electorate is dissatisfied with what they have right now. They are totally not happy with the two-party system. And they are getting less and less satisfied, and they are looking more and more towards alternative options. And we need to make sure the Libertarian Party is ready to welcome those voters in and welcome them into the ballot box to support us.
All right. Now, in regards towards just one more thing in regards towards third parties, and that is currently we are seeing new voter reaction towards being given another option for voting third party. And this is an example right now, and this is the only one that stands so far. But when it's Trump versus Biden with option of other, we're seeing voters of different political demographics go ahead and look at voting for third parties. Case in point was Dr. Cornel West. And in a recent poll, there was showing 10% of Black voters looking to support somebody else that's not Democrat or Republican. And I've said on this show that 50% of the U.S. population now is identifying themselves as independent, be it Libertarian, Green, Independent, non-affiliate. You know, it's right now it's happening. And in regards to this, how will you plan on capitalizing and reaching out to people that at this point are rightfully so burnt out by electoral politics? Because again, out of that 50%, there are many who just have turned away from voting in general. And it's important to reach that important group that can actually, you know, push your campaign forward. So what will be your overall message on trying to reach out to people who either are independent or either that completely burnt out by electoral politics? Because at this point, knowing what we keep on getting with both Democrats and Republicans, people have rightfully so tuned out from politics here in America.
Yeah, well, I think that is a result of the fact that Republicans and Democrats ultimately present very negative campaigns to each other. They spend more time telling you why you should vote against somebody than why you should vote for that candidate. The Republicans, all they can do is talk about how terrible Joe Biden is. None of us really presenting a clear vision for what they want to do. And Joe Biden, he is fear-mongering about the return of MAGA politics instead of being able to run on his own record. And so that's what burns people out, is this constant negative back and forth between the two parties. And so the way we're going to break through with my campaign is we're going to run a positive aspiration campaign. We're going to spend a lot less time talking about how terrible the government is, which everybody already knows. I mean, every Democrats are. We need to talk about how positive and aspirational the ideas of liberty are, and the ideas of you owning your own life and having more control over your own destiny, and how that is actually a bridge to prosperity in the 21st century. And so these are the themes that I want to hit on as I'm trying to talk to people who maybe have been burnt out. Typical Republican or Democrat. I'm somebody who wants to talk about positive vision for tomorrow. I also don't talk about just like the next economic quarter. I want to talk about the next quarter century and how we're going to build an economy that lasts in the long term. And that's something you don't hear from politicians right now because they're only concerned about getting reelected. They only concern themselves with the next 4 years. They're not really thinking a generation down the line. And I think it's high time that we have a president who really thinks about what's going to be going on in the next generation. And maybe we need somebody who's under the age of 80 to do that.
Well, ruled over by a bunch of geriatrics and people who should be, well, resting in an old folks home, but that's a different subject for another day. So now I want to start talking about some of the issues that you are running on now. One in particular has really stood out: respecting and defending your right to privacy and civil liberties. So let's really address the problem here. Hardlens Media, we've been censored 8 times by YouTube. Thankfully, our audience, our allies in independent media, we've been able to walk out of it. But the censorship is constantly increasing. And then number 2, the American people, thanks to whistleblowers like Edward Snowden, who brought to awareness of how the NSA is spying in on us. And then finally, we have our own civil liberties. We have this situation with Cop City. Dr. Cornel West has condemned it. You talk about respecting and defending your right to privacy and civil liberties. What does that mean to you? And to these 3 issues I brought up, where do you stand? Because right now, free speech is on the chopping block. We are being spied in on, followed by our government institutions. And then number 3, we are seeing a rise of a police state, authoritarianism, and so much more. And no one can really just deny it and say it doesn't exist. And every time it is brought up, there's always that quick rush by corporate media and the 2-party system to try and suppress it or brush it aside. I want to give the floor to you.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, we have to return our privacy back to what was clawed away from us post 9/11. That was the biggest mistake that happened post 9/11, is that we never, ever decided to claw back and get our civil liberties that have been robbed from us via the Patriot Act, NSA spying, warrantless wiretaps, all of these things that still exist. And now they've become the norm, right? We have an entire generation of people who've grown up with this just being the way things are. And we need to actually be reactionary and start fighting to get back to what we were pre-war on terror, the ability to have our own privacy, for government to get a warrant if they want to see what's going on. Basic stuff that is no longer being respected. Those constitutional norms have been taken from us. And so we do have to get back to a position where we are respecting people's privacy. And if you need to get a warrant, go get a warrant, dude. Like, that's the whole purpose of our criminal justice system, is that we do have checks and balances that respect the privacy of the individual. And, as you said, that gets consistently rolled back. As for private, platforms, I believe much of the censorship that you're getting from YouTube and other firms like that is actually being pushed through by the government. They are actually trying to pressure these firms. Ultimately, I believe a firm can make that decision for themselves. They shouldn't be getting pressured one decision what they put on their platform. But right now, we're in an environment where, as you've seen over the last couple of years, particularly with the pandemic, you have seen social media firms being pushed back against by government. I really don't think that's the best way to go. And it actually creates less trust and more distrust in government, which is ironically the exact opposite of what they're trying. When they do that, they're providing a chokehold on information, and that's something nobody can trust. And you spoke about Cop City. I live here in Atlanta. I have been an ardent critic against Cop City. I have spoken out against it at the city council meetings. I have met with organizers. I will be phone banking and text banking once this referendum is on the ballot to make sure that voters get out there. We just had a historic over 100,000 ballot signature or referendum signatures here in the city of Atlanta. The people do not want this militarized police facility here in Atlanta, and we're going to push back against it. We're going to show what happens when citizens put it on the ballot. We'll cancel the contract. Cop City will be ended, and that will be a blueprint for cities and localities all over the country.
Now, Now, I'm glad that you brought that up because again, I'm noticing that there is a bipartisan, not bipartisan, but across the political spectrum, there's a lot of people saying that they don't want this because it could be a blueprint to something far more devastating in the future. So I just want to switch it right back to third parties, and then I want to go right back to talking about some of the issues that you are running on. But in a hypothetical scenario, let's say you win the Libertarian Party nomination, there's something that I think a lot of us in independent media want to see, and that is third-party debates. Let's say Dr. Cornel West clinches the Green Party nomination. I'll be surprised if he doesn't. But nonetheless, if that is brought up, and this is something that's not your fault, but I did bring it up to the Libertarians and Greens in 2020, and that is I wanted to do an independent presidential third-party debate. And the only person who got back to me was Mark Charles. The Greens and Libertarians at the time both said that they're waiting to get on the main stage with Donald Trump and Biden. Now I know that that's not going to happen unless something astronomically crazy happens, right? But if you were put in that position, and let's say Hardlands Media or Revolutionary Blackout Network or Larry Sharp or the Jimmy Dore Show or anybody who wanted to host an independent third-party presidential debate, would you be on board with that to debate with somebody like Dr. Cornel West and whoever else is a third-party candidate that's running? Because at this point, corporate media is not your ally. But where do you stand on that? Or are you waiting to get on the main stage? Because, you know.
So here's the thing. So there is actually more opportunity this time for us and the Greens to get on the main stage than in 2020. And this is because Republicans have indicated they want to lead on presidential debates. If they want to do that, then I say we Libertarians and Greens need to challenge them and call their bluff and say, let's have independent debates hosted by the League of Women Voters, Veterans for America, a lot of these major groups that could be hosting a debate. Let's call their bluff. And hey, if Joe Biden doesn't want to get on the stage with me and Donald Trump and the Green, we'll happily just 2 hours and make sure that people know what's been going on for the last 4 years from both the left and the right, right? But I think in that environment, you could actually get all of us on stage. Barring that, I'll tell you right now, I look forward, and I hope Cornel West wants to get some good trouble with me. Let's get arrested trying to get in that debate, because frankly, anybody who is on enough electoral ballots to be able to theoretically win the Electoral College should be on the debate stage. That should be the Democrats, the Republicans, the Greens, and the Libertarians, if they're on enough ballots. Now, if we don't get there, let's say we get arrested going in there. First off, I would love to spend a night in jail with Cornel West. It would be great conversation. But secondly, I say let me and him organize a debate with each other, one-on-one, me and the Green Party. I think that's the best way to go, where the parties that are on enough ballots to and I think our voices should be heard. And I would welcome a debate with Cornel West. He's he's certainly somebody I have seen and out and about and doing things in politics for a long time. I think it would be a good debate for us to have. But really, I would like for both of us to be on the main stage with the Democrats and Republicans. But barring that, let's get me and Cornel on a stage. I'm happy for it.
All right, and but then would you also be open for independent media to be hosting a third-party debate with you and the other candidates who would be running? Would you be open for that?
I would have to look at who the other candidates are. If you're some guy who's on the ballot in one state and who's not running a real serious campaign, I don't really want to,
but then but if it was just Dr. West and you,
absolutely. I think me and the Greens, any party that's organized enough or an independent that's organized enough to be on ballots in several dozen states, I think I would be happy. But if you're just some guy who's just running for a vanity campaign to plug a book or whatever, like, no, I'm not going to waste my time with that. But Cornel West and the Green Party are a established party. They are somebody who has demonstrated the need to be on the debate stage alongside Libertarians.
Fantastic. All right, thank you for that. All right, now in regards towards conflict and wars, we are witnessing perhaps the utter madness of money flowing into this ridiculous war in Ukraine. At this point, the American people have witnessed two examples, and I'm just going to bring up two examples. There's plenty more of Americans being last. The crisis at East Palestine, Ohio, where there was a train derailment, 4,000 people were exposed to dangerous chemicals, and the tragic, devastating wildfires that took place in Maui, where communities were burnt to cinder, loved ones forever damaged. Again, the scars will forever run deep, and yet the people of Maui get $700. But yet the war in Ukraine, thanks to so many journalists such as at Press News, the Gray Zone, the Jimmy Dore Show, all have been covering the same thing. We have been funding the Ukrainian government with, again, billions upon billions of dollars. And on your campaign website, you're talking about ending the wars and supporting peace. Right now, corporate media is drumming the war drums for absolute conflict and no one to challenge that perspective. Why do you stand on this issue? Why are you saying end the wars? What does that mean to you? And how do you really plan on standing up against the military-industrial complex when it's quite clear that they have their tentacles wrapped into corporate media?
Hey, so, I can't help what they're doing with corporate media, right? They're going to be doing what they're going to be. I have to challenge them to speak loudly and clearly that I don't support sending weapons to Ukraine. I don't support us exporting drones and weapons to, say, Saudi Arabia, who you used against in Yemen. I don't support this stuff. It's because ultimately I'm somebody who is a peace candidate. We have to remove our military footprint from every continent around the world. Outside of North America, we should be able to defend ourselves and have a great military that can defend us. But no, we don't need to be funding proxy wars around the world or actual wars around the world, as we did with Iraq and Afghanistan, where we spent trillions of dollars. And, frankly, it's not like Afghanistan is flourishing in democracy, and neither is Iraq. We didn't export democracy there. We just exported trillions of dollars, millions of dead, millions of displaced. And so it was not a success. It's not a successful policy. We have to change our foreign policy. Otherwise, we're just going to be doomed to this eternal cycle of war. And so I just can't stand for that. In regards to Ukraine, there are absolutely options we can take that don't involve arming anybody. We have a humanitarian option that says anybody who wants to get out of the battle zone right now, we allow to come to the United States as refugees under asylum. That gets them off of the war zone. That gets innocent people out of a war zone and innocent United States. That's something we can do. You also make that same offer to the Russian military to say, hey, if you want to abandon this war right now, this war of aggression where you guys have crossed a border, and you want to just abandon the front line, we'll bring you the United States. We'll let you come in under asylum. Watch as the morale of the Russian military crumbles when they realize, hey, we don't have to fight in the freezing cold anymore. We can actually just give this up and go seek a better life elsewhere.
Well, hey, look,
I think that's a great way to not fire a single shot and bring people home and bring people out of a war zone where, frankly, people are being conscripted on both sides to fight it. And
Now, one other thing here too, I want to just bring up here too, because again, there's also numerous reports right now, and CBS even did a documentary that had to be taken down, where again, all these weapons that are going into Ukraine are being unaccounted for, and this calls for a lot of mismanagement in regards to how our government is handling this. Would you be open for an investigation, and would you be leading or at least talking about it more on the campaign trail about some kind of accountability? Because the one thing that we need to remember is that a lot of these weapons that are going into Ukraine are also being then taken out by the black market and being sent to who knows where. I mean, there's no accountability whatsoever, especially during the early stages of the conflict. Where do you stand on that?
So, I'm somebody who's always believed in accountability for government. Like, if I'm president, we're going to investigate where every dollar is gone. One of the biggest things that's always blown my mind is how we lost $1 trillion in Iraq. And like that didn't create absolute outrage and get every bum who was involved thrown out when that happened. And so anytime there's mismanagement, have a top-down, centrally planned government, which is what the federal government is at this point, there's cracks, and those cracks, money falls in them, and we need to actually investigate that stuff. And that's not just with regards to the military-industrial complex spending. That's all across the board and all government spending. There's a reason why budgets are extremely high, but services are not getting what you're paying for. It's because there's money falling through the cracks, and that is corruption, graft, and greed that comes from this giant government structure we have. So if I'm president, yeah, I absolutely want to task my administration with finding every dollar that's missing and with making sure that every dollar that goes out of our government is well accounted for. That should be the norm. That should be like the basic function of an executive branch. But we've abandoned that my entire adult life. It happened with Bush. It happened with Obama. It happened with Biden. Money just magically goes missing. But don't worry, the Federal Reserve will just print billions more and create inflation and devalue our dollar to make up for it. So don't worry about that. It's just $1 trillion here and there.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to combine three different issues that you are running on. You're talking about reforming immigration for the 21st century, empowering people through justice reform, and then also ending the war on drugs. And looking at the war on drugs, there's numerous issues that it created. First of all, we have the prison industrial complex. And because of the war on drugs, we also have political instability in Central and South America because the United States does regime change wars, the United States does coups, and also it's led to the rise of cartels. Once the rise of cartels, you have, again, political instability, you have war zones, and many people who have been impacted by this are going to, rightfully so, want to seek safer places to live in, and that's why we have a migration crisis south of the border. So what is your overall plan on really dealing with the war on drugs and all the things that are surrounding it? Because again, war on drugs has led to the prison industrial complex. War on drugs has also led to this massive migration crisis, but also to the extent to the United States being involved in governments in Central and South America. I want to give the floor to you. Can you please address that?
Yeah, so I would seek to decriminalize all drugs the way the nation of Portugal did. So Portugal in the 1990s, they had a massive IV drug use problem. They had the highest heroin use in all of Europe. And because of this, they had extreme and hepatitis rates. And the government there decided, you know what, instead of this crackdown model that the United States does fighting a drug war, we're going to decriminalize all drugs. We're going to take the stigma of addiction, fear of being arrested if you're an addict, away from those people, so that way they have easier access to go to addiction therapy. And lo and behold, they cut their IV drug use down to where it's now at comparable rates. The HIV rates are now slightly higher than the rest of Western Europe, but they haven't had new infections, and IV drug use overall is down. And so this is the policy that we need to be taking here in the United States. When we decriminalize all drugs, first off, you remove the black market cartel profits from south of the border. You just dismantle the cartels economically that way by removing the financial incentive. When you can just go psychedelics here, produce drugs here, that allows for A, markets to be created in the United States for those who want it, for adults who want it, and B, cuts the knees out from underneath the cartel, reducing the need for people to be migrating here out of fear of asylum, out of fear of cartel violence. It really does. And then it also does, as you said, remove the complex. Thousands of people don't need to be going to jail. We arrest far more drug users than we do for many other crimes that have real actual victims. And it just creates this cycle where people go into jail, they clean for a little while, they get traumatized, then they get out of jail. And what's the first thing they do to treat that trauma? They go right back into the addiction cycle. We need to be doing a better path. We need to be and understanding that addiction is actually a disease, and there are better ways to handle this. One of the best ways that we can actually help folks who are suffering from addiction is through direct action. I always like to shout at this group, Shred the Stigma, Oklahoma City. They give out free Narcan and fentanyl testing strips to addicts. And clean needles. The reason why they do this is A, it helps stop overdoses. They've stopped over 600 overdoses in a year from this. That's 600 lives who weren't lost to addiction, but also it creates a level of trust with these addicts who maybe haven't had that before. And so getting the Narcan, but eventually they're going, okay, I want to get clean. You know who can help me get clean? That ex-addict who gave me that Narcan. That's the guy who can help me get into the therapy that I need. And so that's the local level. If we just treat addicts with a little bit of humanity, that's how we solve the addiction crisis in this country. And then, get people out of jail. People who are suffering from addiction don't need to be in jail. They need to be getting the help that they so desperately many times need.
Now, one other final issue I do want to bring up, and that is, and I think it's important that we do address this. When it comes down to the Libertarian Party, there's this need for removal of public or, dare I say it, even government-run policy issues. But there's many things that have been brought up in regards to the privatization, because that's where the Libertarian Party has been, mostly associated with privatizing many things. But when it comes down to healthcare, we've in comparison to other global nations, first world nations, they have somehow figured out to have affordable healthcare, universal healthcare. The United States, the richest country in the world, the American people don't have that. We have, again, big pharma and the healthcare insurance industry putting its boots on our necks. And at this point, one of the leading causes of homelessness is, again, medical bankruptcy. And the American people, rightfully so, deserve healthcare at this point. Where do you stand on this, especially when it comes down to this issue? Because again, time and time again, we hear from politicians saying that they're going to make affordable healthcare. They're going to deal with big pharma. They're going to deal with the healthcare insurance industry, but that never happens. And we're still stuck with the same story. And we hear the same statistics being brought up. 500,000 people, again, always at every year at risk of being medically bankrupt, losing everything. Where do you stand on that issue?
So I want to give you, I'll give you my broad overview, and I'm going to give you a specific example with regards to, say, insulin, which has been in the news a lot lately, the cost of insulin. So first, I want to say the healthcare marketplace we have in this country right now is not a free marketplace. It is absolutely removed from the free market. It is about as crony capitalism as you can get. It is completely tied into the giant insurance companies and the giant pharmaceutical companies that have massive influence on Congress and on our government. This keeps the cost of healthcare artificially high. I'm somebody who actually advocates for direct primary care healthcare, which is where you do not have traditional health insurance or doctor's office network, a monthly fee, which is often a lot lower than your health insurance premiums. And that covers most of your basic healthcare, anything you do pay out of pocket, but they don't have health insurance billers, which causes most of the overhead at your doctor's office. When you visit a direct primary care physician, you spend 25 of the 30 minutes with the doctor, not 4 minutes, which is what you get with traditional health insurance healthcare right now. Policy that covers if you get seriously sick or ill. This is what I advocate for, is uncoupling ourselves from this employer-based insurance model, because that is what makes the cost of healthcare. The fact that insurance companies demand that they get basically a discount rate. So what hospitals do is they create an artificially high number and they offer the insurers a discounted rate, which is still far more expensive than the procedure would cost. And then they pass that along to premiums to the consumers. It is not a very good model. It is a model full of graft. I don't think that there's a disagreement there. Where I feel like there's going to be disagreement between you and me is I don't support a single payer system. I don't support a government run healthcare system. And this being because it does lead to a lack of. Look at the cancer survival rates in Canada and Western Europe as compared to the United States for people who have healthcare, which granted, more people need to have it. You see that the innovation of the healthcare marketplace in the United States is above and beyond what you're getting with the managed care in some of these other countries. And I know we're going to do, but what I think we can agree on is that the current system right now is very much screwed up. That is completely intertwined with corporatism being involved with the government.
All right. Well, I think
I just don't think that's the best way to fix it.
I think if anything, because I've had this conversation with Larry Sharp. I mean, obviously Canada and Europe is brought up, but you know what should be really addressed too is that, again, yes. Okay, let's say, for example, we are leading that for healthcare. Let's say we have the healthcare insurance industry. They're leading way with all these new developments. I do have to push back and say, look, even if that is the case, they're never going to make it affordable for Americans. I mean, you have our own lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, prevent Americans from getting affordable medicine in Canada because of, again, big pharma wants to capitalize on the American people, once again, being indebted to them. And if we look at countries like Australia, for example, they have a combination of both, again, single payer healthcare and, of course, having your own private insurance as well. And there's an ability for that to work. Would you ever be considered opening up to having the idea of, again, maybe single payer healthcare along with, again, private insurance? Because at this point, so many people are either tied to their private insurance. They think that it's going to be there, but it's never there for them, because obviously with single payer healthcare, that can help. It's just it's never been implemented in this country, and we've seen it work. And there was that point where Americans could get affordable medicine in Canada, but our own government, our own lawmakers said, no, you can't do that, and stop that from happening.
So first, I think you should be able to import drugs from other countries. Like, I think you should be able to import drugs from Canada. I was going to mention insulin a little bit earlier. The reason there is no competition from being able to import insulin from other marketplaces. B, the FDA holds insulin and keeps it expensive due to patent evergreening, which is what the drug manufacturers do to keep their patents. They keep they basically slightly change the delivery system to be able to hold the patent, so it prevents from having competition in the marketplace. What competition can look like that actually saves people a lot of money? Look at Mark Cuban's online pharmacy. He basically charges the cost of the generic drug plus 15% so he can make his money because it is a business. But everything else is far cheaper. You can get cancer drugs right now for pennies on the dollar compared to what your insurance company is going to be charging you if you just buy through his direct cost drugs website. We need to be able to demarketplace so that more drugs can get on websites like that, so we can buy our drugs far cheaper, bypassing the insurance model. I think that's a great idea. But I don't think that single payer is necessarily the way to go. I'd be open to looking at anything though. Like I'm somebody who, hey, show me any plan, and if you can show me how it's going to work. Singapore healthcare model, for instance, it's an entirely privatized model, but you're mandated to have insurance. I'm not a big fan of mandates. I don't think that's really the way to go. But they seem to have a very successful health insurance marketplace that exists, in Singapore.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, one last final question too, and this is something that's been brought up by a good friend of the show, Roger Meadows. This is in regards towards citizen ballot initiatives. Where do you stand on them? Because obviously, citizen ballot initiatives are fundamentally important for democracy. I think at this point, they are. I would say that states that still have access or the ability to be citizen ballot initiatives or to do citizen ballot initiatives are the last bastions of where the people can actually implement what they want, such as cannabis legalization, women's right to choose, etc. I mean, again, the list goes on because it seems at this point nothing can be done at the federal level. So where do you stand on citizen ballot initiatives? Are you familiar with them? And would you be in support of more states adopting the idea of, again, the people taking charge of what they want?
I think it's what you're seeing in Atlanta right now with Cop City, right? The city government passed facility. They passed the spitting for this facility, and the citizens responded back by putting this referendum on the ballot, citizen ballot initiative, to cancel the contract. I think that's a great thing. I think it's great when government abuses their authority for the people to just be able to overstate them and just be able to say, you know what, we the people actually have the right to go over you. I like this right now that there's a referendum right now in Ohio for ending qualified immunity for law officials. I absolutely support that. And I think voters need to get out and support them. These are great initiatives we can do. Cannabis legalization being another one. Protecting a woman's right to choose in Kansas was another one that, people came out and defended abortion rights in Kansas. I think it's good for citizens to be able to have a voice via referendum or via direct vote sometimes, because when these people get involved in government, they get up in the ivory towers, they get their comfortable positions of power by the rich and the powerful and those who have vested economic interests in controlling our government. And so sometimes it's better for the citizens to just be able to respond directly. I support that.
All right. Then as a final note too, for our viewers and subscribers, because obviously, okay, so you're in full support of citizen ballot initiative. So I think pretty much prepare yourself to be bombarded with emails from good friend of the show, Roger Meadows. He's been reaching out, especially in regards towards sharing this idea of, again, people taking charge of their own government and fighting for where they stand on the issue. So get ready for that. So as a final question then, for our viewers and subscribers, if they want to follow you online for social media, if they want to support your work or follow your campaign, where can they go? Where can they follow you? And do you have any events that are going to be taking place between now and the end of this year so that people could follow your campaign?
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be doing a lot of events between now and the end of the year. But if you want to follow the campaign, go to vote. You can join our mailing list. We'll let you know when we're traveling around the country. I'm about to hit 4 or 5 states in the West, in the Mountain West, coming up here in the next month or so. But by the end of the year, I'm going to add maybe another 5 to 10 states that I'll visit. I've already hit 26 so far and growing. But go to votechaseoliver.com. You can see all about me, my issue stances, press releases that we put out all the time on a whole host of different issues. But yeah, join to volunteer with the campaign. We'll make sure you know when we're coming to town. And of course, you can always go to our store and you can get some nice Chase Oliver gear if you want to rep the campaign that way. But votechaseoliver.com is my website. And then if you want to find me on social media, it's at Chase for Liberty. So find me on X, on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, at Chase for Liberty.
All right. Thank you so much for joining our show. Again, folks, I plan on having more conversations like this with people all across the political spectrum. I think it's important that you have your worldview and your ideas challenged. And I think it's important that we have this conversation. So, Chase, all the best to you on trying to get the nomination for the Libertarian Party. Hopefully we could speak to you again in the future. And to everyone else that's watching, the main show will continue on. Thank you again for your time, Chase, for joining us. We continue with the rest of the main show right after this.
Thank you very much.
Economy creeping on the red. They divvy a shit little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking, safe and fat. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking them off as they count the dead.
Gorillas in the mist, skin suits in the Senate. Water in the streets, chest deep like it's Venice. Water out a tap in Jackson comes blacker than resin. Black incidentally like most of its residents, which is why it isn't on your television, isn't on the lips of your president. Well, I'm admitting that as evidence. I've been fleshing out a case to be made for the testament. I don't know what our collateral count is, but doubt it is less than the estimate. You just show us a hospital, watch as we Dresden it. Our propaganda gets taken to heart, and you're scarfing it, like it or not. If you think that you aren't, I would urge you to pick that apart, cause you're drinking it, smoking it, driving it, dressed in it. We pay for it, pray to it, bathe in it, fill up the basin, and babies are blessed in it. Ask no questions, bask in the pestilence. See, honey, when the plague goes live, you'd be wise to invest in it. See, honey, when the plague goes live, just between you and I, that's an industry sign that they're all done testing it. And come 2025, they will all be confessing it. And then a few small fry fall guys all fly from the precipice, who are doomed to be wasted like shell corporations, dissolving to vapor, then gone with the resonance, gone with the sense and the sentiments, gone with the dust of the remnants, gone with the ghosts of the regiment, gone like those families in Gaza whose bodies and homes are demolished when Israel sets up a settlement. Gone like your chance at a settlement, gone like the hope of apologies out of those funding our deadliest research and backroom development. Gone like your shot at a measly I'm sorry from the mouths of our own bioterrorists. God, you cannot imagine the face of the monster. You can't even fathom the scale of its carapace. It's under your feet, yet you're barely aware of it. You see it's quietly judging the scope of your suffering, sizing you up like a therapist. Then it rides in your guts like a parasite, growing in size and excreting a culture that's purely embarrassment. Equal parts Manson and Maryland, equal parts something we push into madness and something we'll gladly exploit and objectify 50 years after it perishes. Carefully crafted and planned and arranged like a monarchy's marriages. Fucking cousins or otherwise, scourge of the colonized, staged and displayed for the sake of retaining those imperial barracks. And all to expedite a special type of anglicized dysplasia. The kind where half the world is waking up to learn they're being raided, raped, and robbed of all their heritage by Charles and his caravan of 30 servants' carriages. The kind where each in the procession is worth infinitely less, till eventually they're paid in sums of crown-approved disparagement and bonuses of shame, till they're finally told to thank the highest-ranking inbred pig named king of every garrison. One who rose into his power all immaculate, like Harris did. Well, now that garishness is melting down like paraffin that hardens in a shell and shelters terrified and threatened royal terrapin. Those that rule with zero question, although nobody elected it. Democracy was here till we dissected it. Democracy was here until the exhibition exodus. And the loss of that democracy is just a threat for those who've yet to recognize the scent of bait or know the taste of desiccants. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it. Mother and baby on razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking, he's safe and fed. He ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge. They don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red as they give you a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red as they give you a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge. They don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red as they give you a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. And ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking him off as they count the dead.
Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red. They divvy a shit a little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking, safe and fed. Ain't got a paper.